Welcome back, and you're watching Commodity Champions. India is the largest exporter of spices across the globe, offering spices and related products of over 200 types. In FY22 alone, India exported worth $4.1 billion of spices. One of the spices that India exports is jeera or cumin, and the prices here have seen a jump of over 45% in the past month amid a high demand and fears of crop damage due to unfavorable weather. So what is India's spice landscape looking like right now? Joining me now to take this discussion forward is Harjeev Sawhney, director at Sawhney Spice. Harjeev, hi. Pleasure to have you on CNBC TV 18. And I'll start with cumin first of all. And we've seen a huge price here. I remember last year the prices were trading at 16,000 and we're trading at 40,000 right now. Do you think the kind of fundamentals that we are working with support those kind of prices?
It's really been quite a roller coaster ride since last year. Fundamentals, yes, of course. I mean, we've seen lower planting across the country. India typically has a crop of about 700,000 to about 650,000 tons of cumin. This year, we're looking at a crop of only 400 to 450,000 tons. So that really creates a shortfall of anywhere about 200,000 tons, which is huge because there is no Indian dish that is made without jeera. So every Indian in India needs jeera. And if you look at a global scenario, about, if you combine the largest producers like Turkey, Iran, Syria, Afghanistan, and China, which has a little bit of their own production, the total global supply is only about 50,000 tons.
And then,
we are,
yeah, please go on, Harjeev. Yeah,
so we're looking at an estimated shortfall of almost about 200,000 tons.
But would you say that the run-up is done here and now, or are you expecting further gains? Because the industry really seems to be bullish even at these current prices, because there are buyers at these levels also.
Correct. The domestic buying can't stop. It's in India, we normally eat the entire jeera crop ourselves, and then we get ready for another year for a whole new crop to come in. But India also is the world's largest exporter of jeera. So what we've seen that the demand is starting to slow down because customers are not able to digest these high prices. So unless they don't digest these high prices, they won't come back for rebuy. So we are seeing some very little movement in the exports business. But domestic, I believe, remains quite active.
That is about cumins, but there are other spices as well where we have seen a lot of price movement in the last 1 year. Would you say that because it's an export item and because it's not an essential commodity, the volatility is something that always does remain in this sector?
The sector does tend to be volatile, but if you see the last few years, there's been a good demand-supply match where we've seen prices going up, but over a very steady pace. But what's happened this year has just been extremely difficult to digest.
Does that impact the export markets then?
It does. It does. Because for the customers, you can only give them a price valid for 24 hours because we know tomorrow the market's going to go up again. And then it's very difficult for them to digest the price and take a decision within 24 hours or 48 hours. And there is a huge slowdown in exports that we're saying because buyers are saying, if the prices have already gone up so high, let's wait for the other original crops to come in. Let's see what they're going to offer.
Well, absolutely. Harjeev, the numbers from the Indian government's data shows that $4 billion worth of spices were exported in the last financial year. What has been the kind of growth? Where are we headed? And what are you anticipating for the next season?
Well, chilies and jeera have really been the stars of the export portfolio. India is also starting to become a manufacturing hub for the rest of the world. So there's a lot of value-added products also being exported, which is part of this basket.
And how would you also look at the organized and the non-organized market, and whether it's about standalone spices or blended spices, what really seems to be doing well?
The blended spices are definitely growing substantially faster. Everybody's looking at convenience cooking. Everybody's looking at convenient food. So the blended products are definitely flying off the shelves much faster. People are appreciating the taste. Indians know the taste of our food. There's no Indian who doesn't discuss the taste of his food. almost at every meal. So yes, blended spices are definitely doing much better. We have, of course, straits are a part of your kitchen. They always have to be there in your kitchen. But the sector by itself is growing pretty fast, even in the domestic market. And there are more and more people who are moving away from buying loose spices from the local banya and are now buying all their products packaged, through online sales, through supermarkets, through your banya dukans and everything else. So people are actually moving away from open products.
But what is even now the categorization, open versus the organized?
But the market for the open spices is definitely coming down sharply because we've seen time and time and again across various articles on the quantum of adulteration that happens in open loose products.
Sure.
So people prefer to trust brands. They prefer to trust companies that are giving them the products. We're seeing many companies enter into this foray in the last few years, and these are all good, solid, trusted brands.
Harjeev, in case you have a number on, when you talk about the blended spices market growing, what is the kind of percentage growth that we would have seen on a year-on-year basis?
Wow, that's really a hard number. But I've read numbers between 12 to 20% growth on the blended market, which is phenomenal. And then when you look at the straights market and the consumers, we're seeing a growth of between 8 to 12%.
Okay. Harjeev, also, we export quite a bit of spices, and this is a big number when you look at that chart coming in there. And I do understand that the Commerce Ministry has been pushing for much higher, almost double of what we are doing at $4 billion. There has been this conversation of around $8 to $10 billion is where the spices industry should take it to. What really would have to be put in to ensure that number? Or do you think that that's a very high, far target?
Well, nothing is impossible. I think we can definitely achieve these targets, but then there has to be big growth in terms of infrastructure. There has to be a lot more. There has to be a much stronger understanding between regulatory bodies and the Indian regulatory bodies. Very often we have regulations that come in after the crop has been grown, harvested, and is in your warehouse. So, Europe, for example, DG Sante can come up with a regulation which says, next month we are going to follow this regulation. But if the crop has already been grown and harvested, there's no time to react to something like that. These hindrances do come from time to time.
Harjeev, also, what are the spices that are doing the best right now, and to what destinations? We do understand that China, Middle East, US are our major markets. Have you seen a constant supply there? Are there any other territories that you're picking up, and for what spices?
India literally exports spices around the world. We export about 7 to 8% of what India grows. And that 7 to 8% of what we export is really 50% of the world demand. So there are different countries that might buy substantially larger volumes at certain points of the year, but the demand for exports has been fairly consistent, except for Jeera, because the prices have gone up so high.
Absolutely, and we are trading at an all-time highs there. But as you said, that the spices as a market is growing, and the expectation that the blended spices will grow up by 12 to 20%, while the other spices at 8 to 10%. So that's a big, tall number coming in, even with where the prices are, which are 100% higher than where we were in the last year. Harjeev, as always, thank you so much for joining us and discussing your insight in sense of spices there. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Commodity Champions. Thank you so much for watching.